These stories coming out in the media are led by the Times, which is a very um, adroit and careful organization, highly lawyered up. This is not like Byline Times. This is not like Dan Wootton. This is something where people have weighed in the balance whether or not this is truthful or whether or not this is bosh. And while, on the one hand, I think the allegations in the last few months against Philip Schofield, against Hugh Edwards, against Dan Wootton were serious, and why we have to reach out and send our deepest concerns and care for the victims, who are unfortunately in these stories, the victims are the ones who get overlooked in the desperation to bag a scalp. And these people are huge stars, really. Even Dan Wootton, uh, huge stars, huge media output, a big circle of followers, equally, I have no doubt, a big circle of detractors. And I think this Russell Brand story is going to be probably the biggest of the lot. And there will be people who will say, but Russell Brand is a great guy. Russell Brand's got this wellness influencing brand. Russell Brand is his own brand. And of course, he's upset a lot of people. And the big media outlets like BBC, Channel 4, I have no doubt been very worried about Russell Brand, as they're worried about many other stars who have such a high profile, such a large group of followers. The big companies don't like that level of leverage that these high profile stars have got, because they're out of their control. And this is so I think we come back again and again to the issue of control. There was an investigation by the Sunday Times, the Times, and Channel 4 dispatches. And so there will be more stuff coming out. I'm sourcing the Times here, and I think I think it's really important to be careful about where the stories come from. But I think the most important thing, we don't know who the victims are. And yes, you may like Russell Brand, and it may be in part a smear campaign. There are plenty of people who don't like him in the media. And he has that profile that is a threat of the popular to the media empires. But you've got to face the reality. The reality is, you may like somebody, but he may also do bad things. And he may also be a bad person, even though he projects this extraordinarily affable public persona on the media and on the YouTube, Twitter, and so on, social media. There's a person called Catherine Ryan who has spoken about him, I think, in a vague way. But the allegations of abuse made by the Times, there are stories of a girl who was scared of Brand, who said when a girl says no, it means no. There's allegations. I think the really bad bit, the bit which is going to be so difficult for Brand to explain, are the allegations of a 16-year-old who was assaulted, and she claims that Brand referred to her as the child, and he forced her to perform oral sex. She punched him in the stomach. There's the allegations of a woman who threatened to sue Brand, or who threatened to go to the police about Brand, and he threatened in turn to sue her. There's the talk of physical and emotional abuse from a number of anonymous sources. Now, all of these are just allegations. Nothing is proven. I think nothing has been formally put to Brand. So this is the stuff, in a sense, of tittle-tattle, but it's tittle-tattle from extraordinarily reliable journalistic sources. And this is unlike Philip Schofield, unlike Dan Wootton, unlike, I think, Hugh Edwards. This is a man who is phenomenally popular and extraordinarily clever, and he was ahead of the game. He has put in his denial. He's managed his, as the Times says, he's now 48. He's managed to maintain his fame for the past 2 decades through reinvention. First as a stand-up comedian known for debauchery, before becoming a primetime Channel 4 TV host, BBC radio star, Hollywood actor, and most recently a wellness guru and anti-establishment influencer with millions of followers online. This isn't the Alex Belfield sort of flash in the pan thing. This is somebody at the height of his popularity. And I would also say, there's a just to bang the old drum, there's a reality TV dimension here as well. Of course, he was the voice of Big Brother's Bit on the Side, or whatever the Parasite show was called, and I would maintain that reality TV brings with it a sort of disease of control, and it turns up all over the place. And the people involved in reality TV are pandered to, and then suddenly let loose. And there's this sort of vacuum that people fall into. I had a very brief brush with reality TV, and I did not like what I saw. And I've spoken to so many people in the years since, and I've never once spoken to somebody who has a genuinely good word about this form of television. I think it could be a great form of television. It isn't, because it's dominated by control and by power, but particularly by the power of the studios and production companies, but I think also by the sense that anything is possible, by the sense that morality is out of the window, by the sense that all that matters is a good show. And that isn't all that matters. What matters when you have a media profile, what matters when you acquire celebrity, is you also acquire responsibility. The same can be said for political celebrity. You acquire responsibility. And what we see looking at Westminster is that responsibility isn't taken seriously. What we see looking at reality TV is that responsibility isn't taken seriously. What we see looking at cheap television, like the sofa surfing television in morning TV, or the cheap television in Talk TV or GB News, is a sort of predatory power and a desperation to cling on to the fans and to say whatever outrageous things one can to clickbait one's way through to earning a living, to scraping through. And the same thing, I suspect, is going to occur with YouTube. It gets harder and harder to keep going on YouTube. The algorithm is something which is impossible to fathom and impossible to ride, really, unless you are very, very successful. And you're told, oh, well, look through your videos and find out the ones which are popular and do more of those. Well, I'm afraid if like me, your videos are based on commenting on the latest news stories, offering an opinion, well, I can only be so good as the latest story. And I'm certainly not going to manufacture stuff about Suella Braverman simply to get her name into the clickbait um, pro rata pro forma system. No, and so I expect this is quite an uphill struggle for those people who are in that area like me. But it's I think the important thing is to keep one's head and to keep level. And I think I think there is a responsibility even at this level. There's a responsibility to the people who switch on, and I think it's a sort of training curve. There's a responsibility if you're on stage. There's a responsibility if you're in a film. There's a responsibility if you're in television. And there's a responsibility on social media. And that responsibility goes beyond beyond what you say. It goes through to your private life, your personal life, because what you are projecting is a version of you. And so there aren't really any clear limits. And that's the problem area. That's the problem area. The stories about the young girl are horrific, and they're all in the Times. I'm not going to read them out, but I mean, there's a headline here: "He sent a car to my school to take me out of lessons." It's stomach churning, and I don't know. I think I have to pause because I don't want to prejudge Russell Brand, and I don't want to in any way seem that I'm being dismissive of his victims' allegations, which I think must be taken very seriously. What one can say is that there are victims here. What one can't say legally, and I think morally, is that we know who has done the victimizing, but people feel hurt. And I think the first job of the authorities and the first job of our society is to help the victim. The next job is to identify and pursue the attacker. That may or may not be Russell Brand.